Hey, hey. Let's see. I'm the presenter, but I need to figure out how to change my name. Hmm. The internet. Hmm. Cool, cool. Hi there. Hey, Ken. You're muted.
It's
There
probably
we
better
go.
that way.
Oh, I disagree because this is a discussion. So I see you're a co-host too. Are you part of ACTAL?
I didn't know I was a co-host. I can be. No, I'm not.
Just a participant?
I'm not a part of ACTAL. I mean, I work with Eric, who is the mastermind behind this.
Right, right. Cool. Well, I don't know. Maybe they gave you a bit of authority in case things get wild.
That's cool. I have a tendency to go on and on and on and on. So,
Me too. So I have notes to try to keep myself in line. What's up, everyone? Welcome. Welcome. I think just give like a couple minutes for people to come over from other presentations and whatnot to join us here. And then we'll get started. I am also going to try to make sure I can share my screen. You can share. Camera. Ooh. What's up? What's up? Hey, everyone. This is thrilling. Just getting the tech stuff going. I Alrighty, can y'all see this slideshow screen? Yeah, great. Great, great. All right, cool. So welcome everyone. This is going to be a roundtable discussion on the vital role of sustainability in makerspaces. My name is Rachel, and I am going to be presenting today. And I think presenting is a strong term. I'm going to be facilitating. Quick question for ACTAL. Are you going to let people into the waiting room, or should I be doing that? Okay, cool. I see. Y'all got it. But we're a team, so I'll try to help too. Alrighty. So I want to start with giving you a little info about me. Who are you, Rachel? My name is Rachel Segrest. I am the Makerspace specialist at the Billadu Makerspace here at Seattle University. My undergrad is in business administration, and then I went to graduate school for design for sustainability, which really was my first introduction to makerspaces. While I was in school, the main things that I took away from design and sustainability in this beautiful marriage was really that collaboration, education, and sharing with each other are the best things that we can do to create a more sustainable world. I'm all about it. And so since then, I've been just dabbling and kind of creating and getting involved in different organizations. I've started meetups. I have a nonprofit. I am just obsessed with community and sustainability and how we can create a better future for ourselves. But on to the next. I will say that I got my COVID shot and a flu shot yesterday. So please forgive me if I am sluggish. It is not you. It is absolutely other things happening in my body. All right, so a rundown for our discussion today. These are definitely suggested points that I came up with, but this is a roundtable discussion. It's for the group, it's for all of us to share and collaborate and learn from each other. So I'm totally down to edit this, remove things, add things. And I also do want to say that I know we are in a scholarly or academic setting, but please know that anything that you have to share is valid and it does not have to be a perfectly formed thought. Um, Curiosities or ideas, it's okay if you don't know the article. Yeah, don't worry about it. I want to hear from everyone. And what you have to say could also reach someone else in a way that you didn't expect. Let's see. I'm going to not really talk about too much of the space that I run. I do run the Billadu Makerspace. We do our best to be sustainable, and we're pretty fiber arts focused, but we do have lasers and 3D printers and vinyl cutters and the hand tools and that sort of thing. So first, I'm going to kind of crowdsource to you all and find out what topics we absolutely need to cover, what you think we should be talking about. I'm going to add those in, and then we are going to discuss what actually are the elements of sustainability. I think it's a very common word, but the definition that we use for it is not so common. And I think it varies depending on what you're doing and where you're at, what sustainability means to you. Then we'll talk about kind of what's happening in your spaces or maybe spaces that you've been to and you've noticed some awesome practices that they're doing. We'll talk about programming, that's workshops and trainings and events and that sort of stuff that you have going on or that you've experienced elsewhere. Then I'm going to get to the topics that you have suggested, and then we'll close with our hopes and our dreams for sustainability and what we can achieve together. All righty. I do want to say that I am presenting to you from Seattle University, which is located in Seattle, Washington. We are on stolen land here. It was originally occupied, cared for, stewarded by the Duwamish peoples. And it's very important to me, especially in the lens of sustainability, to acknowledge that. I have so much appreciation and gratitude for indigenous peoples and native peoples who lived in incredible harmony with the earth, land, and water, the creatures, the flora, the fauna. And I take a lot of inspiration from those peoples and those practices. All righty. Makerspaces hold so much power. Creative spaces really allow us to, in my opinion, reach our full human potential and the way that we can connect with others and the way that we can create, repair, and dream for ourselves and for those around us. So I'm super excited to hear what you all have to contribute today. So all that being said, what topics do you want to cover? Um, anything is anything is fair game here.
I'd like to hear the definition of sustainability first.
Sure. Would you like to hear my definition?
Yeah, or
Yeah.
anybody's.
Awesome.
I mean, I'm thinking like, are we talking about how are we able to, maintain the the supplies needed in the makerspace, or are
Right.
we talking about um, on a more like environmental, like disposing of our filament or recycling
Mhm.
filament, that kind of thing, or are we talking about something completely different?
Sure. Well, I'll hold in case. Does anyone in the crowd have any ideas or input on what the definition of sustainability is or how you define sustainability? And you can just unmute and say, cool. So the definition of sustainability that I was operating off of when I presented this topic or proposed rather is really all of the systems that are operating within, in this case, a creative space or a maker space. Um, how can they work harmoniously together? So I'm thinking the social elements, who's coming into the space, how are they interacting with each other, how are we sustaining or creating an environment, practices, programming that can sustain themselves, that can continue to function without harm or detriment. So that would be recycling materials or even closing that waste stream to come back into the space and continue using it. For me, that's also who is in the space. How are we serving just one population? How are we making our spaces and our programming open and accessible to everyone? How are we empowering our users? And also, I think of the sustainability in terms of our own energy. How are we fulfilling ourselves? You know what I mean? And not burning out and making it so that we can continue to sustain operations. Um, what are the suppliers that we're using, and what harm or positive effects are they having? Are you Are you getting things from a supplier that is just operating with virgin materials, where they're constantly having to harvest stuff? I think sustainability, in my mind, I think of a bunch of systems overlapping with each other and how are they feeding and strengthening each other. And I definitely do look to indigenous peoples for that because they lived in harmony with the world around them. You know, they barely had any waste, if that, like everything was used. um so for me, my dream for sustainability in the makerspace is um sharing knowledge and the understanding with where my students and the faculty and staff that also use this, that we create, humans created the world that we live in at this point. The infrastructure, the food that we're eating, the language that we're speaking, the clothes we're wearing, the table I'm sitting at, the computer, the technology, everything we created, and we continue to create. And how can we create and design in such a way that feeds us and empowers us and that is sustainable for the long term, like for forever? You know what I mean? Because I would definitely say that right now, the way that our our society works is not sustainable for the long term. I think people kind of um, cynically joke, you know, that we're heading for apocalypse. That's an extreme way, but how can we in maker spaces and creative spaces encourage encourage projects and also model um, the type of world that can sustain itself? Does anyone have anything to add on that?
There's not like one answer to rule them all, is there?
I don't think
Uh,
so, but
I'm the operations manager at VCU's the workshop, and we have studios like for virtual reality and video production and audio recording, and but we have a makerspace with a bunch of 3D printers and laser cutters and textiles machines, and you know, we're not having a problem having people come in, that's for sure. We're open to all of our university community, but we're also here for alumni and friends of the library. And those last two will get bumped for academic purposes if there's, students that need it or instructions. So we spend a lot of time doing orientations, and then uh, whoever has gone to the orientation can use the equipment. And so, our biggest sustainability, and this is, I think, what made me click to register for this one, was, you know, being able to keep up with the supplies. So, like, say, for example, the filtration system for our laser, it costs $600 a pop for a HEPA filter. And then it also
mm,
has $200 um, cloth matrix pre-filters. And I'd be lucky if we made it through a semester without having to replace the HEPA twice and the pre-filters 4 or 5 times. And I had to ban acrylic because even with all of that, you know, the it got particulate matter, but it didn't get VOCs. So it just was, you know, the good news is that they've actually approved and are almost finished installing a completely new ventilation system that will suck all of the nasty stuff out into the air for the world to appreciate. And we will be able to burn things in there with no limits. But I guess really it's the expenses. Our money comes from partly out of the students' tuition uh, and partly out of the higher education trust fund and a
mm,
little bit out of the library's operation budget. And that makes it kind of hard to set the pace. because we do spend a lot of time working with instructors, trying to find out what they need, but also coming up with ideas for them to use our space that they didn't even know were a possibility. So most of that involves spending money, but it has
Mm,
really been weighing on my mind. Two things have been actually accessibility, because I don't think that the way that the makerspace was designed, it's really easy for people like with disabilities to access everything.
yeah,
Uh, but then also, environmentally, uh, I've been exploring possibly machines that will recycle the filament. But with most of the 3D printers that we've been using anyway, which were the MakerBots and the WellsBots and the Rays 3Ds and the um, Ultimakers and the Prusas and the Formlabs, um, most of them tell you that you need to use their filament or their resin, and not just like go off and buy any third party stuff. And so it makes it kind of hard to recycle that because it's
right.
not just like one big melting pot. But not only just that, we've got with all of our sewing machines and with cosplay going on and Halloween, there's like cloth scraps everywhere. And where should all of this stuff go? So that was my impetus for joining this, because I thought there might be some discussion about that. Uh, I have no answers for
Nobody has
those
the answers.
anyway.
It's all good. Just discussing. Yeah, that's perfect. I'm gonna put supplies, accessibility, and materials back at the end for suggested topics because I think that those are all definitely some of the major things that we're facing, um, particularly with materials in spaces that are creating stuff. It's like, what do you do with something that can't be used in the way that it was again? Does anyone else have anything that you think should be discussed? I see we got 6 things going on in the chat. Let me see what's up here. Ah, all right, perfect. Programming ideas, perfect. Thank you, Meredith. Lisa Hooper has a super basic question. What recycling options do you all have for electronics that have bit the dust? Especially interested in learning about e-recycling programs you had to build. Me too. And I definitely agree with that bit about electronics. I did watch a very long video the other day of someone breaking down or going through the process of burning and extracting gold from PCBs, and it looks incredibly unsustainable and very fume heavy. But it's interesting to think about what's possible. Ooh, I'm here for operational sustainability and environmental sustainability from Lisa Hooper. Carrie Hill says, of course, with those ventilation systems, aren't we just spreading the dangerous VOCs further? How can we push the needle forward on materials that aren't as dangerous to work with? I also agree with that. And then Ken asked, do you mean the filtration system or the ventilation system? So let me add these ideas. So we've got programming for sure, which we will get to. Recycling options. I know that there's also precious plastics, which I'm sure many of you have heard of. Um, Precious Plastics is an organization for recycling 3D printer filament. You can get like a shredder from them and an extruder to create new filament. Um, that's definitely something that I want to explore more. Alrighty, sustainability. And in the meantime, are there anything else that y'all would like to discuss? I know we have a limited amount of time with each other. Lisa Cooper also said Louisiana is a heavy plastics producer, and Tulane is just down the river from communities deeply impacted by this industry. So I'm painfully over aware, especially of plastic waste. Is it possible to reuse or effectively recycle 3D filament? Is there an alternative material? Or are there other machines using more sustainable materials that can do the same job? I've also wondered about this. I feel like right now lasers and 3D printers are popular makerspace machines. But what's next?
Well, for
Cool, cool,
fabricating
cool.
things like, and that's what we get a lot of going on here is people prototyping. Uh, I mean, sure, there's people who come in who've never used a 3D printer before, and we're all about it because we want to help them understand the technology. So they might walk away with a game piece or a iPhone case or something that they printed. But we do get a lot of prototyping done. And oh, I completely forgot where I was going with that.
No worries.
What was the last thing that you just said?
I was saying, what's going to be like the next popular machine? We're talking about how right now 3D printers and lasers
Oh, the
are.
different materials. Yeah, I mean, so what we're finding is like, one of our MakerBots will do carbon fiber. I mean, not really, it's ABS with carbon fiber in it. And so that's really helpful to a lot of people, being able to print with flexible filament or biocompatible resin. Uh,
Mhm.
those are all things that are proving to be really helpful. I don't know of any other materials that would actually replace those, but there are ways to recycle that stuff. But like I said, we're having a hard time. Like we've looked into a, a number of filament recycling options, but what you're going to end up with is something that you can't use because for us, we're using the manufacturer's product. So when we churn it through that system and it spits it back out, we could donate it to a local makerspace for them to use maybe, but we wouldn't be able to use it.
Mhm.
Is anybody else
Sweet.
using recycling their filament? There's different systems out there. Some of them are like you said, the extruder and the shredder, and there's some of them are all in one. Some of them are multi-part. Most of them are pretty expensive for the
Yeah,
initial purchase.
that's our biggest concern right now is that recycling is definitely on our mind, but it's a little prohibitively expensive, even to start with. And also for us, space is a real issue. We don't have a ton of space to keep, like, let's say that we were to mail it somewhere that would be able to do that. We only have so much space to store extra filament too. So we're running into that issue right now currently of like we want to be more sustainable, but we are having a space and money issue.
Jessica, where are you coming from?
Michigan State University Library,
Gotcha, gotcha.
our makerspace there. And it's
And
small, it's gonna grow, but it's not there yet.
I got you. Um, so when you say cost prohibitive, can you elaborate on that a little more?
So
Like,
we've
what
done
are the,
some
yeah.
Yeah, so we've done some experimenting on, mailing out, different types of filament. Obviously, the type of filament is an issue too, right? Because we also work with ABS and PLA, and sometimes some of them are just not very effective to be recycled, right?
Mhm.
So just going beyond that, um, and really, to ship it out, we're just running into not getting a lot of support to spend that money to ship it out and have it be recycled that way. And then again, the probably the best way for us would be to collect it and then ship it, but we don't have the space for that, because we would have to separate PLA from ABS and so on and so forth and go from there. And we're just not getting a lot of support for that. There is some really good research being done here at Michigan State University Packaging about how long it takes for some of these filaments to recycle in the environment naturally, and different ways that can help. There's some really interesting work being done in the packaging department too.
Yeah, I think for me, I think of 3D printer filament and things that sort of seem to have reached the end of their function. It's time to, in my, just to use it for something else, like um how can you like what's the way to say it? So for example, over here, these boxes that I have, that is basically trash that I've just sorted. So we got rubber, plastic, metal. We have a lot of students coming in prototyping stuff. Our kinesiology department last year had students making prosthetics, and so they needed just materials to work with and sort of experiment with. Um, and even me in my product design career, um, I don't know, like there's lots of times when I need a wedge, or I need just a little piece of something um, to use as a washer or a shim, um, or like an enclosure for a an Arduino or that sort of thing. So I use just a plastic bottle rather than 3D printing something. So I think part of it is also just stepping outside the box of recycling back into its original function, you know? But I also had talked to someone, Molly, who runs the Makerspace, or is the lab manager over at NYU's Makerspace. And she had suggested or said that they would crush up their PLA and instead put it on a baking sheet and put it in an oven. Actually, I don't know how they heat it up, but heat it up and melt it into sheets to use on the laser. I have not tried it, but she did show me what they were working with, and it looked beautiful and seemed to also be functional. So I think there's also ways to step outside of the recycling box. Thank you
Must
so
not
much
have
for
been
sharing that.
PLA. Sorry.
Why not? What do you
Oh,
know about
you try
PLA?
to laser PLA, it's just going to be a dripping, oozy,
Oh yeah,
fiery mess.
I think it was PLA, but I didn't see the final result. I only saw the sheet. I didn't see it post laser. Or I wonder too if you could maybe not put it in the laser, but then just use it as if it were acrylic sheet that you're bending or forming in a different way.
And possibly with the proper settings, you could put PLA in the laser. I think the only two times I ever had a fire in our laser was when somebody tried to laser something that they 3D printed with PLA. I don't know what they had it set on. The other time, somebody was trying to laser cardboard, and I know that can be done. They just didn't do it right, and the air flowed through it, and it caught fire, and the whole fire actually ended up in the filtration system. So, I mean,
Whoa, that's wild because I've put cardboard in the laser a lot, and that would be
yeah, it can be done.
terrifying.
It's just, yeah, you have to put it on the right settings.
Wow. So I want to circle back to the talk about finding or dealing with your supplies. Um, because I think that supplies and materials are very closely related. What are some of the ways that you all are dealing with supplies, or what are the challenges that you're facing? For myself, I would say one of the biggest challenges I have with supplies is actually trying not to order things from Amazon. Um, because we have the university procurement system, Amazon is a very easy and like just readily accessible way of getting supplies. But I would really like to, and Seattle U also really emphasizes or encourages more local suppliers, which I also do, but it seems to be such a, and I think this is true of a lot of sustainable practices is that they do initially require more effort to set up that relationship, to set up the vendor in your system. And I was just curious if anyone has had a lot of success or comments on supplies. Ken, I know you wanted to talk about supplies initially. So for you, what were the main things that you wanted to source to the crowd?
Well, I don't know. I guess are people applying for grants and getting them, or because I mean our sources are very limited, and you know there's a lot of things that we'd like to be offering to the university that we can't really offer. Uh, it might take us, you know, 3 years. We'll put something in a spreadsheet that we want, and then by the time the money's around, it will be something different or a newer technology will have replaced it. So, yeah, it's money, really. It
Mm-hmm.
comes down to that. Because I don't think that we're not hurting for ideas on what we'd like to be using in here. I mean, I
Yeah.
just donated our CNC to materials and crafts because it was too noisy and took up too much space. And even with it was completely enclosed with vacuums and fans and everything. You still just should not have a CNC within 20 feet of a stereolithographic 3D printer. Dust, dust and resin don't
Yes.
go together.
What is materials and crafts?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's a School of the Arts department here
Oh,
at
neat.
BC.
Oh, cool, cool, cool. Got you. Got you.
But yeah, no, we have our eyes on all kinds of you know great new emerging technologies, but it's our budget is limited, and that's our biggest thing. So then I thought maybe there were grants that could be applied for. Um,
Yeah. Fortunately, our makerspace is pretty heavily grant funded, and then we're part of the library here, and so we have access to their budget as well. Um, but I would be so interested to hear from other participants here today how you're getting money, because I think that that is a struggle of a lot of maker spaces and creative spaces, is just how to get funding.
I will just add one thing because we're a library, we don't have alumni. And so basically the university is like all the alumni money is going to these schools where the alumni graduated from. So for us to get money from alumni, uh, it's pretty tricky. So we basically have to have development officers that seek out local corporations for money or apply for grants.
I got you. I see we also got a chat. Meredith says we're funded in part through 3D printing service costs because they charge a nominal per gram fee for prints. We also have a few things that we charge for. Um, 3D printing is one, vinyl. We do stained glass and fused glass in the space, so we charge for that. Um, but for us, and as well as acrylic and plywood for the laser, but for us, that's more just breaking even and kind of refilling the coffer opposed to making a profit. Nick said, same, we also charge for large scale poster printing too, which helps a lot. Oh, yeah. Sasha says our public library has a foundation that raises funds for many different library programs. Our Maker Lab is the smallest pie slice. We charge a small fee for time and material, but based on how we collect it, it goes back into the city coffer. Oh, that's interesting. Based on how you collect it, what does that translate to? Our library fine system. Oh, I got you. Got you. Alrighty. So we use the integrated library system to apply for charges. I got you. Alrighty, so I know we're jumping around on this slideshow a bit, but I would like to cover what we talked about. So I'm gonna jump over to programming. Um, Programming is one of my favorite things about working in the makerspace. I love how you can create a program on anything, um, and it's so cool to see who shows up for what and who gets excited about what. Right here is a photo of one of my staff members. For some reason, in our makerspace, rock climbing has become a craze. And so this is one of my staff, Ben, who designed this chalk bag. He's a business student, but was curious about fashion and whatnot. So um, I gave him some slight pointers, but he designed this bag specifically for a workshop and then hosted a workshop on it. Um, Here in our space, I find that our main population is students, although we are open to faculty and staff here at Seattle U. Um, I think it is most powerful and inspiring when the students are the ones leading the programs. And so this academic year, I've very much shifted to just supporting and empowering them. I do teach a couple or instruct on a couple workshops. One of them is 3D printing paper molds that I actually got from XYZ Aiden. It was an Instructable. So he designed these 3D printed paper molds, and then you can just take any kind of paper. You can use cardboard, egg cartons, copy paper, whatever. You make it into a pulp, and then you shove it into this 3-part mold, which I think is a very cool concept. Um, so that's what I'm teaching. We also have natural dye processes here in the space. We've partnered with our grounds team. We picked different plants and dye stuffs from around campus, and then we've processed them and been experimenting with dyes. Um, I would say our approach here is really trying to see what people are interested in. Um, I think that can be a challenge in and of itself sometimes, because you got to get the calendar done, and it's like, well, I'm interested in this, or I think people will like this, or and we have deadlines to meet. But I am increasingly trying to source the group for what they're into. And so I'm curious to hear from all of you, like, what are some of the programs that you have going on, and we can talk about calendar management, your specific approach, different groups that are coming into the space, involvement, who's leading your classes. We've also had some external instructors from the community come in and teach workshops. Amelia, who is a local fiber artist, came in and taught how to make bucket hats. My boss, Nick Ames, who's here on the conference call today, is teaching a very popular workshop where they make rings from silver quarters. And I think the silver quarter, is it 1964 and earlier? Yeah. They're made of solid silver, so we can use some of our jewelry making equipment. The students are so jazzed about that. Um, and so, yeah, I'm curious to hear what's happening in your space. I think Seattle U is uh, a very particular, maybe it's being in the Pacific Northwest, but our students are really into like putting patches on their clothes and making things from trash and repairing, and yeah.
Um, I'll actually jump in for a second because I'm Nick. I'm also on Rachel's team. And when saying that it's unique to Seattle U, I actually want to connect a couple things that have been talked about. I think part of the reason that our students are so into repair, so into like smashing stuff up and sticking it in those molds, is that Rachel has done a really good job of prioritizing kind of process and object over machine. So, you know, there we can find a way to use waste from one process in another process because we're not trying to figure out how to get it back into a 3D printer. We're not trying to figure out how to get it back onto a laser cutter. Instead, having like an open mind to, we have this pile of stuff. What are the things our students seem interested in and excited about? And what is a process and product that we can create out of that? So it's a way that we can touch on a couple of things, programming, material recycling, and a bunch of things. And I think Rachel's done a really good job of having kind of a really holistic mindset about how to approach all of these types of sustainability.
Thanks, Nick. I should plant more plants in the audience. With that being said, this is another project. It's a necklace. For whatever reason, our students are really into jewelry as well. And so I've been saving date pits and lychee seeds, mainly because I wanted to plant them again. But I started making them into necklaces. I had these vintage seed necklaces that were really beautiful. So yeah, just to Nick's point, how can you take something and use it in a completely different way? That's still wonderful, still functional, still useful. But what's happening at your spaces? Don't all talk at once. Let's see, Nick Aponte. We have an Adobe Scholars program where we schedule consultations with students on how to use specific Adobe software for their projects. Nick, well done. Like, Adobe is fantastic, but there's certainly a learning curve for students, and we do hit this issue as well. I work at the music library, so my specialty is explaining how to use Adobe Audition, specifically to record interviews, oral history, documentation. I love that. Yeah, we've talked a lot about if we should have full-on Adobe workshops, but sort of go back and forth with the fact that I've actually never heard of Adobe Audition, but we use Illustrator here in the space a lot for creating vectors for the laser, our embroidery machines, and the vinyl cutters. Also, our sibling space is the Media Production Center, run by Alex Guevara, who's also on this call. And they have a sticker printer there that we also use Adobe for. We haven't given a full-on Adobe session workshop because there's so much digital, or there's already like what would you say, videos, digital videos, and that sort of thing that people can access. But I did try doing some office hours for Adobe once a week in a past quarter, but I didn't have too many people come to it. And for us, it's crazy. Like, sometimes our workshops are full with a wait list, and sometimes they're completely empty. I have not yet been able to determine what the students or our users' pattern of behavior is for attending stuff, or what yeah. Sometimes it's a beautiful day and I'm like, oh, of course no one came because it's so nice outside. But then sometimes it's a really rainy day and I'm like, oh, well, of course no one came. It's so ugly outside. Um, of course that's a relative term. It's not really ugly. Alex said we also use Photoshop, Premiere, and Lightroom, all of which can also be class requirements, which can be tricky to support. If that makes sense. For those of you who are talking a lot about 3D printing and recycling and e-recycling, do you have programs that involve or that create e-waste or 3D printer waste? Like, is there a 3D printer workshop that is like creating that at the end of it you end up with a lot of filament?
We hardly ever finish off a reel. It's like it gets down to the last foot or 2 feet of it, and it's not going to complete another project, and it'll just get swapped out. And then there's failed prints. That's the plastic that's the hardest to throw away, really. You end up with a bird's nest from a failed print, or just any kind of failed print, and what are you going to do with it?
Yeah, I think that's also a big opportunity for partnership with like a film department or the theater department. Um, People who are building sets or need props. Um, a bird's nest thing, I just think of some sort of decoration or grass or um zombie apocalypse, like, yeah. Because for us, like, it's a failed print, but for someone else, like, it's this crazy thing and it could be this, that, or the other. Or, just connecting with arts departments. And I think here in our space, we're really trying to create community, both within the Seattle U community, but also outside. But right now, and Nick, you could speak more on to this. We're working on partnering with other creative spaces on campus that are not necessarily open to everyone like we are. So I think the sculpture department, maybe, and a printmaking studio that have been historically only available to those within a specific class. But Nick has been talking with the faculty there about how to have us and the Makerspace staff go over there and hold something. Nick, could you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. Excuse me. Yeah, so as Rachel's mentioned, we're at Seattle University, which is a small Jesuit university. We're about 3 blocks wide by like 6 blocks long. So really small, no reason that we shouldn't all be sharing everything. And like lots of us, many departments don't have funding for student staff or staff to open labs. So like the ceramics lab is only open when the faculty member is there. The sculpture studio is only open for the students who are currently enrolled in the class. And we've been playing some soft politics of taking our position as the library as at least seen as a neutral party on campus, right? We all know those are us that are libraries that we are competing for the same funding as everybody else. But other departments don't see us as threatening. So to offer our students are going to come over and open up this space as an opportunity for these departments to potentially get recruitment, right? If we can open up the ceramics studio and an engineering student can come in and take a ceramics workshop, maybe then they'll enroll for a ceramics class. So really leveraging everyone's desire to have more students enrolling in their programs as a way to kind of get our foot in the door to become stewards of these spaces that can become shared.
Mm-hmm.
I can share more details, but I'd rather wait for a question just because otherwise, me, I'll talk all day.
We got a couple of things from the chat. Chelsea Hooper says, we offer workshops in Adobe and partner with faculty to integrate into their courses and also have student consultants to help support. Likewise. Christine said, I have stumbled into an early childhood faculty member who can use our PLA scraps in an upcycling way with a group of preschoolers she works with. I'm wondering if anyone else has any strategies for finding upcycling partners in their community. Anyone? That's brilliant. And that's exactly what I've been thinking as well. Jennifer Nichols said, we are trying to do something similar at the University of Arizona, linking the spaces and opening discussion about how to get closed spaces more accessible. We can't afford to staff them, but advocating for the university to do so. Yeah, I think that's one of the ways I consider our spaces to be so powerful is I see, especially us here at the Ability Makerspace, as a funnel. We are in a brand new building. We got windows. It's very pretty and kind of, we're a bit of a showpiece, I would say. And we get really noticed. And I would like us to be sort of a beacon for our students, faculty, and staff to learn about other things on campus. And for me, that is a huge element of sustainability. Is how are we sharing resources, including information, and making sure everyone knows what resources are available to them.
And I want to add something about the staffing costs and some of the metrics that we use and the way that we've been able to get buy-in from our dean on, you know, funding the opening up of these other spaces. Is we use sort of a per student dollar amount as a metric of, you know, gauging success or kind of the ROI on something. So when I'm able to pitch that we're going to go open up the ceramics studio for 2 hours so that 15 students can come through, you know, that's $10 a student for this workshop, right? I mean, maybe that doesn't sound like a great ROI, but like really making it bite size and saying, you know, I'm not trying to get a staff member that's going to work 8 hours a week in this ceramic studio. It's not a, you know, whole new staff position. It's not even a whole new student staff position. It's $150 of our student staff budget to go do this thing. And $150 doesn't sound like money to a dean if it's done in those little bite size. If I came in and said I need 150,000 because I'm going to do this, you know, 1,000 times, that would get shot down. But doing it in these bite sized moments and then selling it as a cross campus partnership, because now the library can say we're doing this partnership with fine arts, we're doing this partnership with performing arts, and so it just builds across campus.
Thank you, Nick. I want to get back to, because we just have a few minutes left here. Recycling and e-recycling specifically. Someone had asked the group what your approaches were to e-waste and e-recycling. So I definitely want to give a little time for anyone to mention their thoughts. For us right now, I think we have, well, we do have an e-waste pickup on campus. Our makerspace is part of the library, but within that, we're part of, or we're underneath technology. So it's relatively easy for us to just give our e-waste to the technology department, and then they have the appropriate waste pickup. But before I do that, I do like to try to see like, oh, can I use this wire for something else? As I said, I'm fiber arts oriented, so I tend to like to sew things together. Or jewelry is really popular here in the space. How can I use this copper wire for something else? Um, who, I'm trying to think who it had been that, let's see. Who had asked about the e-recycling? I don't know if that person is still on the call, but if you could elaborate more about what you meant. Ah, Lisa Hooper. What struggles are you having with, or challenges are you facing with e-waste and e-recycling?
Our challenge is that we don't do any e-waste or e-recycling. So we're sort of starting from scratch in a community that doesn't even have the basic resources to do that. You know, we take our own home recycling to the recycle center every week, and so they're very picky when you bring in appliances or electronics about what they will and won't take.
And are you at Tulane?
Yeah,
in Louisiana?
Yeah, it's very, very different recycling world than it is in Washington State.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm from Louisiana, so I understand.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. I'm not sure. What kind of waste are you generating in terms of e-waste? You know, is it computers or keyboards?
Yeah, Those I don't have to deal with. Those go to somebody else. But I'm just thinking, we have just a very small equipment lending collection at this point that I'm looking to grow. But as things break or they just aren't compatible with modern technology anymore, like what am I gonna do with them? Just hold on to them forever so they don't end up in a dumpster? Obviously not ideal. Because I'm also thinking of all the things that were probably mined to make those work, that are just really bad for the environment too. So
Yeah.
I don't really know what to do with them, sort of where I am. So I'm super interested in anybody that has been able to build their own, sort of build your own recycling program, if you know what I mean. Sort of start something from scratch, I guess, since that's, I think, what we'll be doing here.
Mhm. Yeah, that's very valid and definitely very challenging. When it comes to electronics, maybe that are outdated, I think of um, how can you like reprogram it, or how can you kind of make something Frankenstein, to create something new, and then would that be a program? Are any of your, or do you have student staff who have interest, or users who have interest in electronics, Arduino or Raspberry Pi, that we here, I'm in the computer science building,
Mhm.
so we have a lot of really brilliant young people who understand things I don't. So, um, yeah, kind of back to what we were mentioning earlier, how could you redirect um, or rethink the recycling process?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Tulane did away with its computer science program after Katrina. So they're
Oh,
sort of building it back. I'm sure there are students who love to tinker with these gadgets, but our program and collection is so new and occupies it's not in a very visible space, so it's not heavily known. Like people use it once they know about it.
mm-hmm.
But I think as I'm looking to continue building our program and our spaces, I want to do it with a sustainability plan. Obviously operational and environmental sustainability plan. And I just don't have a plan yet. So I'm sort of appreciating hearing all your brainstorming ideas. I like it.
I'm
I
glad.
created a legacy equipment museum.
That's fun. Can you talk more about that?
Uh, yeah, well, I ended up having to spring for half of the display case myself, but it was huge. It's a huge display case, and I've got all kinds of old equipment in there. It's novel. People spend time looking at it. I mean, it's got everything from stuff that we've had in the makerspace, like pneumatic video players and uh, 16 millimeter projectors and any kind of legacy media equipment that you can think of. But it's more media stuff, not makerspace stuff, because we do also media here.
That
So
is so awesome, Ken. And I think, yeah, like just showing people what has come before. I find a lot of users who come through the space are looking for inspiration or trying to understand a process, or they're just trying to get oriented. We're part of the library, so anyone can come with no skills or experience, and being able to look at what has come before or how something was done, I think it's so inspiring. That's super dope.
it actually works really well too when the university librarian is bringing through alumni, uh, and pitching for donations, and the older people go by the legacy museum and see equipment that they recognize.
Mhm.
It ends up being like the congregation area for them.
I love it. Oh yeah. These are like the weird nuanced parts of sustainability that I'm talking about. Because just by honestly organizing your trash in a different way, you're educating people, you're creating a spot for convening, you're inspiring, and you're not putting something into a hole we've dug in the ground. Props. Well, thank you all for participating. We've reached the end of our time, and I don't know how this works if we're just going to suddenly get cut off or kicked off. Um, but this has been such a pleasure, and I really appreciate all of you coming to the table and lending your energy to this.
Thank you, Rachel, for hosting.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
I guess we just leave.
I think so. I'm going to stay on till the end. If anyone has any last questions, or I don't know, just seems appropriate.
I can share a picture of the legacy equipment if you want to
I
see
would
it.
love to see it. Yes.
Also, Rachel, speaking of sustainability, can I bring you a bunch of paper?
Yeah. I'll take it.
Okay. Yeah, I know you're
I'll
collecting
actually-
all my paper. It's growing.
Yeah.
So I guess we should have mentioned that. That would have been a fun thing. But anyway,
Next time.
I took
worries.
some notes just so you know. There was
Thank
also
you.
like a group notes, but I don't know if anyone wrote anything in there.
Oh, yeah.
But thank you. See you.
Oh, this is groovy, Ken. Bye, Alex.
Yeah, it's
I
no
love that.
Musée. Have you heard of Musée de Mécanique
No.
in San Francisco? It's here, I'll type it for you, but you could Google them. They are just, oh, I left off an E. It's
Oh, no worries.
Um, yeah. Have you ever been to San Francisco?
I have.
Do you know Seal Rock?
I don't
No.
remember. It's been a
Okay.
few years.
Well, it used to be a little bit outside of the city, and now it's moved into the wharf area. And the where it used to be was really cool because you just felt like you were in a time travel. But basically, somebody started just assembling legacy equipment. But I mean, this is kind of like it started with the rotoscopic boxes for watching movies and early forms of foosball and things. It's just you could go in there and you could spend a whole day just having fun. And God, I'd love to have something like that. I do have a Viewmaster in there, which I consider to be the early 3D pioneers, 3D visual pioneers.
Well, I can't stop looking at that thing in the top right. What do you call that?
Oh, that's a Victrola. I mean, it's not really a Victrola. A Victrola is a name brand, but most people know it by that. But it's a record player.
Awesome.
It's a hand crank with the speakers. It comes off the top.
Incredible. Well, thank you so much for participating. Your feedback and contributions throughout definitely made
We
this more
didn't get a
interesting.
lot of talkers, did we?
We did not. But
Yeah.
you know what? People were listening and they were involved in the chat. It's a lot for me to like kind of be between.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have to hand it to you. You really led a good one. You had a lot
Thank
of
you.
it's like I don't know whether you had it all written down or if it just flowed, but everything you said was just perfect.
Thank you. I realized today that the presentation was actually 3 hours earlier than I thought because I'm on Pacific time
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
y'all are on Eastern. I was like, holy shit,
Right.
it's in 2 hours.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I hate that when I have to call a vendor and they're 3 hours behind me. So I'm here and I want to call them first thing in the morning, but then I have to wait until lunchtime to call them. But that's how it goes. All right.
All right,
Well,
man. Well,
good luck to
are
you.
you going to be at the conference next week?
I am.
I'll see you there.
It's here where I work.
Ah, nice.
So you're coming to Richmond.
Yeah,
So you'll
I
get
am.
to see
I get to see the
space.
museum.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of that.
Oh, you will get to see the museum. Yep. Well, there you go.
Pretty
I'll
good.
see you next week then.
Good to meet you. I'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.